What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Entrepreneurs Podcast. I'm super excited to introduce to you my next guest. She is a life and business strategist with over 17 years of expertise working with hundreds of companies. She leads, teaches, and inspires CEOs and entrepreneurs to push through fear, doubt, and insecurity, and helps them achieve their absolute highest potential in every aspect of their lives, as well as teaches them how to stop being the bottleneck of their own success. She has an amazing new ebook called The Blueprint to a Seven-Figure Business that you can download for free over at her website, reginagulbinas.mykajabi.com. Welcome to the show, Regina Gulbinas.
Hi, how are you? Super excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have you here, and I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do this for us. Hopefully, share some of your insight and wisdom with our audience, and give us some nuggets along the way, as they say. But anyway, I wanted to get started by asking you a question. I was doing a little bit of research, trying to get prepared for this interview, and I noticed on your Facebook page that you said Shark Tank is your favorite show. Is that still the case?
Oh, Shark Tank. I haven't watched it in a while. I think it lost a little bit of its appeal for me just because of, I think it's gone a little bit sideways. People come on now. I think they overestimate themselves to make sure nobody buys in, but to still get the exposure. So it kind of went that way a few years back. But I love being able to see people that just start from scratch and they have this passion when they get in front of the panel of judges, and they hustle and they thrive on building their business. So I admire that and I respect that. So I love to see that happen.
That's awesome. Actually, the reason why I asked, because it's one of my favorite shows as well. And I agree with you, though. Lately, it seems like in the last couple of seasons, it's gotten very much to, like you say, it's just a publicity stunt. A lot of people just try to get on there to get that exposure. They don't really want an offer or a deal. But I was going to ask you, what was, if you can remember, maybe off the top of your head, what was one of your favorite, companies that did go on there and maybe did or didn't get a deal?
It's been such a long time since I've watched it, so I don't even want to try and come up with something. I honestly just don't remember. I truly don't recall.
Okay.
Oh, you know what? I do remember one. I think a few years back, somebody came up with these flower boxes, or you put them up on the wall. And I think Lori is her name. She grabbed the deal with them, and then they're all over like Bed Bath & Beyond and QVC or Home Shopping. I mean, that was impressive. It was such a simple idea, but so basic, but so beautiful to have inside the house or inside the office, and easily manageable, easy to maintain. And I think those guys just exploded, because it's simple. It's plastic. I mean, how much is the cost of it? Nothing. It's plastic, but it costs, $20-$30 at Bed Bath & Beyond to buy a box of that stuff. And maybe the manufacturing costs them $2-3. So I thought those guys were pretty genius. They came up with the solution for to beautify your office or your home in a very simple way, and I was impressed.
That's funny. And actually, it's the simplest products that seem to do the best. Do you remember? Maybe familiar with Scrub Daddy? The sponge for like washing the dishes. It had
yes.
Like a face on it. It was like from one of the first seasons, I think, and then I think it was like Lori or the QVC lady. They ended up picking up that product, and it just went to do millions. And it's like a sponge, like it's nothing special. But it's funny because I think about it all the time when I'm, now, like I was telling you earlier, I'm helping my mom move into a new house. She has a Scrub Daddy, in her sink, and like every time I walk by and see it, it makes me think of the show, and it kind of reminds me of my own, my entrepreneurial journey and what I'm trying to do in business, because Shark Tank is such an awesome show. And like you say, you get to see business owners share that passion, and as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, it's fun to see that. So anyway, I digress. Let's go ahead and jump into the interview here. I want to get a little insight into your background and into your story. In the intro, you mentioned 17 years of experience building and reorganizing businesses. Give us a little backstory on that. How did you get into that, and what's that all about?
It's interesting. I am not a school person, and I want to throw that out there, not to tell people don't go to school, but to tell people that if you really want to achieve something, you really, truly, honestly, sincerely can. Don't allow certain things to handicap your natural abilities, because I did that to myself for so many years. I didn't really barely manage out of high school. School was just not for me. I wanted to work. I understood business since I was little. I understood money and I understood people. And I understood how to navigate people and money so that it's a win-win every single time. Because that's usually when conflict happens, when you mix people with money. That's just the bottom line. So those things were easy to me. And I knew from the beginning that I was created to make an impact and make a difference, but I did not know how that would manifest itself. But I also knew from the beginning that I could understand things at a certain level when it came to business that may possibly take somebody years of education or a higher end education. So managed to squeeze myself through high school. I went to a 2-year college for fashion merchandising just for the sake of it, because everybody was going to college. I mean, why not? Something to do. But knew I was never going to do anything with it. I literally just, picked something to go do. And now I ended up fashion merchandising. Seemed pretty easy. It was business oriented. So barely managed my way through that. All the while knowing that I have passion to be of service to people, to help people, and do something impactful with my life. And I went through several jobs. I always excelled immediately at any job that I would start, because I was never the 8 to 5 mentality. I understood that you got to work harder, you got to work more, but I didn't do it to kind of stand out. I did it because that fueled me. That fueled me. That passion, that drive, the 8 to 5 never really was my thing. And I ended up getting a job, some bookkeeping position in a nationwide sign manufacturing company that was actually going through corporate reorganization. And the gentleman, the man who was taking them through the process, actually ended up being my mentor for many, many, many years. So I kind of bumped into him, but the moment I bumped into him, I knew I belong in the space of helping people, helping companies grow. Now, I did another interview with somebody yesterday, and they asked me, how did you know? And I said, well, I knew I was meant for something. I was kind of like walking around with this key, trying every door to see which door unlocks. And the moment I found helping people through restructuring their companies and through building their companies, that key just naturally turned and I walked in. Now, keep in mind, that came with, once I found my place in life and my purpose that I was created for, it came with a whole different set of issues. Now, I was 24 years old. I'm 41 now. I was 24, no education. I'm a female. That's almost 20 years ago. Nobody really cares about what I have to say. These CEOs are 40, 50, 60-year-old, mostly men still. It's a fact, and they could not care less what comes out of my mouth. But what comes out of my mouth actually made a difference and an impact in their lives and their businesses. Now, keep in mind, I'm not talking about a one-man show. I'm talking about companies with employees that are millions of dollars in debt. We're not talking about an entrepreneur that has maybe a couple of customers, 10,000 a month, 15, 20. I'm talking about 200,000 a month revenue, 500,000 a month revenue, a million, and I'm only 24. So that came I had a lot of obstacles with that, obviously. But when people actually let me speak, they would pretty quickly catch on to the fact that I knew what I was talking about. Not only that, when I would give them directions or suggestions or things to do to correct the course of their company and the health of their company, it worked immediately. I gave them immediate action steps. So the more they applied it, the more historical evidence they had of my knowledge and understanding of what to do, the more they let me direct them and navigate them. So that's kind of how it started. I got a job and bumped into the rest of my life, so to speak.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, not everybody, I guess, is maybe either that aware or that fortunate, however you want to look at it, to kind of bump into that. And actually, I was going to ask, how you found this avenue or this industry, because I would think becoming a consultant for restructuring large companies like that is, it's very niche, and also you do have to, one would think, come from a business background with, with a lot of schooling and instruction and stuff like that. And I mean, just as you were telling your story, I can totally imagine the struggle that you had and the obstacles that you had to face going into a quote unquote man's world, right, of business back, 20 years ago, and try to actually get them to change things that they're doing in their business. Because, hey, who are you? I've built this thing from the ground. I've been doing it this way for however many years, and you're going to come in, this young girl, and try to tell me how to change things. I mean, that had to be tough for you, but thank God you were able to get through that, because, I can tell just in the few minutes you've been speaking, like you say, people, I'm sure anybody listening right now, they can see that you do know what you're talking about. I can see that you know what you're talking about. And, just the way that you talk about just business and sort of the background of like what makes different things move, like what turns the cogs in the wheel, it's clear that you have a good insight into how to run and structure a business. So I guess that, that puts us at a great place for giving some insight for our audience. What are like some of the difficulties that a new entrepreneur has to look, that they're going to look forward to in terms of starting and running a business? Maybe somebody who doesn't have a team.
Well, I do want to say that it's a great question, because I wanted to mention, so after spending all these years in reorganizing companies, and I've learned that companies fail because statistics dictate, whether we like it or not, that most companies will fail between the year 5 and 10. It's a fact. You can't get away from it. Now, the interesting fact is that statistics also dictate that the economic factors don't impact the success or the failure of the company. Now, I don't want to say across the board, no company ever gets impacted by economics, and it never fails because of that. But the majority is not impacted for that. They fail for 2 reasons. Lack of infrastructure is number 2. And number 1, lack of information on the part of the CEO. So now, after learning everything I've learned for almost 2 decades, I'm working now with fairly new and startup companies to teach them how to avoid those things that will cause them create those financial chaos that I've seen so many times over the years with these companies. So I want to help these people now not become a statistics. And the main key points to avoid is that lack of information, number 1, absolutely. The bottom line is, and this is a fact every single time, I get over 100 companies, always the same 2 points. Lack of information. The company's needs will always outgrow the information of the CEO. They will always at some point or another, your company will need things that you as an entrepreneur do not know or can't provide. Not because you're not smart enough, but because you don't know everything. You cannot. And you have to be smart enough to know that you're not smart enough to know everything. If you can set down your ego, if you can set down and say, if I don't do this, nobody's going to do it right, you can succeed. You can't be marketing, you can't be accounting, you can't be sales, you can't be bidding, you can't be whatever it is. You cannot be a million people in one day, because you're going to end up doing everything half-assed, nothing gets done, and you're stuck in this hamster wheel feeling like a failure, which is not the case. So you got to know where that sweet spot is to bring qualified people on board. I'm not telling people, well, like the startup companies I work with, go hire an accountant, a CPA, an attorney, hire 25 people you can afford. Hire them part-time, one at a time. Negotiate, trade, commission, this and that. So there's ways about it. Number 2, infrastructure, which falls into knowing the sweet spot when to bring people on board. If you don't have the infrastructure in place, you can't grow. Number 1. Number 2, it's not just about the infrastructure. You have to have the right team. If you've hired people that are not the qualified people for your company, it's the same. It's not even the same. It's more of a chaotic environment. It is more costly and more expensive because everybody's just fixing everybody's mistakes and nobody's doing anything right. So you got to line up yourself with people that are there for the sole purpose to support and drive forward your mission. If you see people are not there for your mission, let them go. Let them find a better place for them. If they're just there to make money, they're not going to be there for you. And you have to have a mission and a goal. So if everybody's not supporting one thing, it's not going to work. So number one, know when it's time to know that you're not smart enough to know everything, when it's time to bring people on board, and put the correct infrastructure in place. Even if it's one person at a time, part-time at a time, but start doing that. And another big point is that I've learned that really kills companies is, well, actually a few. People need to learn that you can self-fund your own growth of the company. Most companies I worked with were millions in debt because they were funding by taking out extremely expensive loans. They were funding future revenue. So they're basically borrowing from the future, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. You're borrowing money today that's due today at a high interest rate that's going to be generated, and you will get actually cash receipts from 5, 6, 7 months down the line. But before you get that cash in, you got to fund production. So now you've got an expensive loan, you've got the interest, you've got the principal, you've got the cost of manufacturing, insurance, labor, all those things. You're not going to see a dime for 5, 6, 9, maybe 18 months down the line, but you've accumulated an insane amount of debt. So people take debt on for future revenue. There is ways to fund your own growth. You don't have to go a million miles an hour just to end up at a Chapter 11 bankruptcy case, which most of the clients that I've worked with ended up in federal court Chapter 11 because it's a federal court jurisdiction. So you don't have to do that. And another point that kills me, you don't have to take every client out there. You have to be very specific who you bring on board. And if the client doesn't fit you, you gotta fire your customers. One of my favorite things to do. But when I tell my clients, you gotta fire your clients, they lose their sanity. They're like, what do you mean I gotta fire my customers? They bring me money. No, they're customers that will actually cost you money. They will cost you energy, they'll cost you money, they'll cost you your sanity. They're just not worth it. And there are customers that are great customers, but are not paying you literally until 5, 6, 7 months down the line. You know, cash is king. If you're not getting cash now in your hands, you can't operate a business. You can't pay for a customer to produce and deliver to a client now that's going to pay maybe sometime down the line in 6 months. They may not be here 6 months down the line. Their business may not be here. Cash is king. So you got to be careful who you're bringing on board and never be afraid to fire a customer. If they got to go, they got to go. It's like a bad apple. It's like a bad relationship. Yeah. So those are just a few. I mean, I can go on for hours. I don't think we have enough time.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I really hope you guys have a notepad and a pen and should be taking notes right now. You know, and really a part of that I kind of want to dig into a little bit is the team building and bringing on, you know, the infrastructure, right? And then bootstrapping, because a lot of entrepreneurs, they, you know, like you say, a lot of startup companies, they do go for that investment to get started kind of quickly. But a solo entrepreneur, they typically tend to bootstrap their business, at least in my experience, that's what it seems to be. When it comes time to bringing on somebody or potentially partnering with somebody, what are your thoughts? And I have a feeling I know what you're going to say, but what are your thoughts on hiring your friends?
You know, I'm only going based on historical evidence of well over 100 companies. I know it sounded sarcastic, but it really wasn't. I mean, I've done my case studies. You know, I'm not just talking out of a place of let me take a shot at it. I'm talking from experience. It really doesn't work, and here's why. Entitlement. Friends and family have entitlement, number one. Number two, if you forget about a partnership. If you hire them as an employee and you pay them, let's say, $60,000 a year, whatever the number is, 50, 100, $1 million a year, I don't care, whatever the number is, you as a CEO will always make more money. You as the CEO should make more money. You should not make as much as your employees. This is your vision, this is your mission. And the reason everybody around you gets to make money is because you had the balls, you had the guts, you had the guts to actually move forward with the things you want to do. So you should get paid more than a CEO. But every one of those people at some point get angry at you for having a nicer car, a nicer house. I have seen only one customer in my whole entire life where it was a family business, not family owned, an owner, his brother worked for him, the most loyal, humble, unentitled man I have ever seen in my life. Over 100 cases, that was the first one I've seen in my life. He
Wow.
didn't care how much his brother made. He was just happy to be along for the mission. He was happy to be in the company. And that guy worked 12, 15, 16-hour days because I've seen him do it. One time. Everything else, entitlement. And entitlement really will poison the work environment, which will affect the bottom line. People don't understand that everything affects the bottom line. Numbers are just, I teach my clients all the time, because when they don't like their numbers or whatnot, the numbers are just a collection of decisions made along the way. The numbers is just the yield of the decisions the CEO makes. So any type of poison, any type of chaos will affect the numbers, because it psychologically will affect the CEO. And then that poison bleeds into the family. There is family involved, there's kids, there's moms, you name it. There is a bloodline of people. So usually, I'm not a big fan of it, honestly.
Yeah.
I'm just not.
Well, I appreciate that that insight, and from my experience, it's been the same. I've tried partnering with a couple of buddies on different projects, and it just never pans out. And like you said, anytime money gets involved, that's typically where the conflicts start to arise. So I think we all have a little bit to learn about how to deal with each other, and money and value and everything like that when we're working together. But let's go ahead and switch gears a little bit. I kind of want to get your thoughts on like the digital marketing and sort of social media world that we live in, and some of the opportunities that are presenting themselves. Again, as a starting entrepreneur, as a new business owner, like what are some of the things that people should be focused on or looking at when it comes to digital marketing and social media?
Two things. Number one, it goes both ways, meaning as an entrepreneur, I'm sure you're online a lot, you're prospecting for new guests and things of that nature. The shiny object syndrome is horrible. So absolutely horrible. Not the horrible part about it is that I am watching more and more people manufacture their own truth. And then new people, new business owners, entrepreneurs look at that and say, I want to be that. I want to do that. And I've had many customers actually tell me, I want to do what that guy is doing. The truth is, you don't know what that guy is doing. You don't know what his numbers are at. And you don't know how he gets his money. And you don't know if he is 5 minutes from shutting his doors. So I'm watching more and more as I study certain people that people just manufacture the truth. So you have to be very careful not to get caught into, and listen, there's a lot of very honest people out there. So I don't want to take it away from anybody who's doing it right and doing it well. But a new entrepreneur will pay more attention to somebody who says, I've made $5 million in 12 months, something silly like that, because it's all over the place, 90,000 in 3 months. Well, you got to have a foundation to be able to produce that. It doesn't just happen because you snap your fingers and took a course. There's a science behind it. There's work, a foundation behind it. So number one is whatever it is you read, probably stop. Number one. Number two, for you, for the listener who are starting or have brand new companies, if you're going to go on social media and present and represent your company and yourself, be consistent. Be consistent with the things you say. Be consistent with your authority. Be consistent how often you say, because people start to follow you and listen to you. Now, trust is the same online as it's offline. When people start to pick up that there's dishonesty anywhere, and social media moves fast, your credibility is shot. So I beg and plead and urge everybody, you have to be honest, you have to be authentic. Your numbers may not be, $100,000 a month. They may not even be true when you see that. But if they're consistently $10,000, $15,000 a month, even less, but if they're consistent and they're honest, people will follow you. People will want to work with you because they know if you're honest online, you're going to be honest offline. You're going to be honest with them on the phone. You're going to sell them honestly. People don't understand that when there's an audience that's watching us, they form their perception of us way before they decide to trade business for money and say, I want to do business with you. Here's my hard-earned cash. Help me. The way you present yourself online, that's exactly how they assume you're going to take care of them offline. So that is so if you're going to go on social media and market yourself, be authentic and be honorable. Dishonesty is very short term. You want long-term success, be honorable. I always point out that only a few people have made it 10, 15, 20 years and have built massive companies. There is a reason to that.
Mm-hmm.
There's really, and if you look at them, I don't care what industry, but I guarantee you there's maybe 3 to 5 very same list of items that all of them did, whatever industry they're in, to get them to the success, which is honesty, integrity, commitment, passion. The list is the same. Doesn't matter what the industry. So digital marketing, be consistent, be on point, stay with your brand, and be honest. Nothing will kill your company long-term and your income as lack of integrity. Bottom line.
I love that. Yeah, that is great advice. The consistent honesty, and
Yep.
and also, I mean, this is a paper trail that never goes away, so it's like you said, social media moves really, really fast, but it's also something that's there forever, and people
Mm-hmm.
can always go back and look at. So for those of you that are striving to get out there and hit the ground running, like, don't fake the funk, right? Because people will smell it, they will see it, and eventually you're going to lose that credibility, and it's never going to come back. So that is really, really good advice. Is there anything in the digital landscape right now that's exciting you in terms of your business and what you're working on?
Yes, I am passionate about being of service to people. So the fact that I can do Facebook Lives and have my own group of people, a Facebook group, and teach people at no cost and give them the nuggets of information, to me, that's exciting. I believe that you don't have to only give people value when they give you money, when they hand you over money. I think you need to live your life providing value, and the right people will line up and sign up as a customer. So that's never at the front of my mind, so to speak. I'm there to be of service. The work is, natural laws of the universe. The more you give, the more you get. I mean, it's not rocket science. It really does work. I mean, I think more people should try it. But the fact that I can go and do digital social media and do Facebook Lives and give information and be comfortable with not even getting anything in return, not even a comment or a thing, I'm happy.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for the opportunity to reach and be of service to more people, whether they pay me or not. Absolutely.
That's amazing. Yeah, and I agree. I love Facebook Live and the ability to create a congregation of people that are interested in the same things that you're interested in.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's completely free of charge. And
Yep.
even 10 years ago, we couldn't do this so it is really exciting. And I love that, you coming from a place of service, and like you said, you're passionate about serving people and providing value. And I think that's super important to success as well. For a lot of people that are getting started out there that are trying to figure out how to make a name for themselves, if you just start providing value for, your target market, teach them the things that without any expectation of getting something in return, like amazing things will start to happen, and
Mm-hmm.
It's a beautiful thing, really, when you start seeing that come to fruition. It's really nice to see that happen. So that's great advice. Let me ask you another question, sort of about the work-life balance, and balancing the business, because as entrepreneurs, it's something I like to say, we trade the 9 to 5, which is the 40-hour work week, for the 100-hour work week, and sometimes even more, to be a business owner and an entrepreneur. How do you manage this balance in your life? Especially, like you said, you have 2 daughters and a family. I mean, how do you make it all work?
Well, it's taken a few years to realize that I am the biggest asset that I have. And I best take really good care of it. So it didn't really come to me when I was 20, even early 30. This is more a recent discovery when I'm 40 and starting to feel things I didn't feel before in places I didn't know I had, something like that. But my biggest thing is I meditate. I do read the scripture almost every morning. I go to church. That fuels me and fills me for the next week. So it may seem something simple to somebody else. To me, I know what it does for me, so I reach for that. Like I said, meditate. I eat healthy. I try to, I'll let myself pig out here and there. I'm a human being. I want to have some stuff that I shouldn't sometimes. But for the most part, I'll eat healthy. I'll take time for myself. I'll take time for myself. I have a schedule, meaning I have a checklist of things I need to do. Extremely important. I urge everybody to have a daily checklist. And I like structure. Otherwise, it becomes unorganized chaos. So the way to take care of myself is really just eat healthy, read the Bible for myself, go to church, meditate. And it may not all be at the same day. You just kind of have to be self-aware. There are days where I don't necessarily get to do that I need to do. Like today was absolute chaos. I did meditate, and that's about it. But you have to know when you've had enough. Your body will always tell you. You have to know. And sometimes there's so much to do, but I can feel that I'm reaching a point where I need to just sit down, be quiet, and turn my mind off. And I will do that. I mean, obviously, if the sky is falling, I'm not going to tell everybody, I'm off for 6 hours, but I will do that. I will take time. So sometimes the time is needed that kind of comes out of the blue. Okay, I've had enough. I need to shut down for a few minutes because that will refuel me for the rest of the day. So I am self-aware. You got to be self-aware because, again, people have to really wrap their brain around the fact that you are your biggest asset. You have to take care of yourself because nothing else will matter. Especially if you're a CEO who actually has a company and with employees, people rely on you to make the final decision. You have to be in top order. And last point I'll add to that, it is so extremely important to have the triangle of mind, body, spirit in order. Because if that thing is, and for most people, it's not in order. You're either lacking on the spirit part or the mind or the body. Something is always lacking. And one of my favorite phrases is you're only as strong as your weakest link. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're only as strong as your weakest link. So if your weakest link is body, you're not going to last enough hours to manage your company. If your weakest link is spiritually and you constantly feel depleted, you're not going to be as effective, as productive. So the triangle of mind, body, spirit is extremely important and extremely hard to maintain, but everything that is the source. It really is this. If you can get those three things in order, everything else will flow and line up. I've seen it time and time, including my life. When I drop the ball on that, everything seems to be a mess. I'm not in order. The center of me is not there.
That is really, really great advice. And it's a simple way to look at it too. It's just the structure of three: the mind, the body, and the spiritual, and for me personally, recently the spiritual has been what I've been working on a lot lately. And I feel the energy that you're talking about, and the passion and the motivation. I mean, it's amazing when you start to really take a look at these things and focus on them and not just, oh yeah, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But you actually, start to think about it and really focus on it. It's amazing what can come up and sort of the things that you'll learn about yourself. And again, what you said about self-awareness is absolutely key. I mean, we need to know what fuels us, what encourages us, what makes us happy, what makes us sad, and
Mm-hmm.
getting to your body, like you say, when you've had enough, you need to be able to turn off. So that's really great advice. And I got to ask one last question, which is, where you are today after the amazing career that you've had so far, all the lessons that you've learned. What is some advice that you would give yourself maybe 5 or 10 years ago?
It's the same thing that I keep reminding myself all the time, that I don't want to say nobody's opinion really matters because it sounds very harsh. But when I know that something is mine to do, don't wait for somebody else to validate it for me. Don't wait for somebody else to say, well, it's a good idea. At 35 even, I perhaps still cared about to say, that's a good idea. Now, I always did anything I wanted, but it still felt good for somebody to say, that's a good idea. Now, I don't even ask if it's a good idea. I just don't. Listen, I've spent the last 17 years on an amazing career path of reorganizing companies, and I decided I'm going to shift my approach. I literally in one day decided to change everything I've known for almost 20 years. And I said, well, I want to help new businesses. And people probably looked at me and said, you're nuts. You're set. You've got 20 years behind you. You've got 15 companies you're running nationwide. You know, my clients were from California to New York, and big manufacturing companies, a lot of construction companies, a lot of making millions of dollars. And I decided to say, well, I want to try something else now. I mean, who does that? I'm a single mom of 2 kids in California, not the cheapest state to live in. But I did not even ask. I'm passionate about helping people. So the biggest advice I would tell myself is the same thing I remind myself now. The opinions don't matter. And for the listeners, if you're in a place where opinions still matter, it is so critical that you understand the animal. Meaning, if you're asking an 8-to-5 employee, hey, an 8-to-5 employee who lives in fear all the time, hey, should I open my own company? You don't have to ask them. I can tell you what they're going to say. They're going to say no. Keep your steady paycheck, keep your, whatever comes with a steady job, but nothing is steady, number one. But you got to know the animal. You got to know the animal who's standing in front of you is telling you your idea is not a good idea. Now, the interesting part is that if you talk to somebody who's never done a business, always lives in fear, and has a mile-long list of unaccomplished dreams because they were too afraid, they will always tell you why. I don't care what you ask them you should do. They will always tell you shouldn't do it. It doesn't even matter. The answer is no. If you talk to a business owner who has achieved incredible financial success in the business world, they will tell you, absolutely, absolutely do it. If you're passionate, if you fail, big deal. You start your life all over again. It's fine, because it is fine. It is absolutely fine. Now, my personality is not for the weak of heart. I have the personality of, let's jump out of an airplane. We'll pick up a parachute on the way down somehow. So I know I can give a heart attack to anybody with the way I function. But I will look back at my life and say, man, I've had a great run. And I always ask people when they tell me I will do it someday. My response is, someday you will be too damn old and tired to do it. Someday never comes for most people, because they say, well, I'm already 45, I'm already 55, whatever you are, you either will do it or you're not going to do it. But I also ask people, do you want to live the rest of your life and at the end of it say, I've pissed it away, or I had a good run? Do you want to look at a list of things you did, or a list of things you never got to do? Because when you look back at 70, 80, 90, you'll realize you could have done it. It really, I mean, it wouldn't have killed you. You could have done it, and people treat life as if it's a dress rehearsal. Like I teach my clients, this is the main performance. This is not a dress. When the curtain goes down, you're off stage. They kick you out. They drag you out feet first, and the next one comes on. Like nobody cares. You're done.
Yeah.
So do you want the curtain to go down and you feel like you've never gotten the stage of life? Or do you want the curtain to go down and you're crawling off of the stage exhausted, knowing, man, I nailed it. I nailed my whole life. It was incredible. Full of mistakes, full of heartbreak, full of whatever, but full of accomplishments, full of love and people and relationships and money and all of that stuff, but people got to choose. So I know I went a little bit sideways with your question, but I'm so passionate about it that I watch so many people hand their life over to fear, saying, here, hold on to my dreams. I'll be back when I feel like it. That it blows me away.
That's the imagery that you just painted right there is amazing. Here, hold on to my life. I'll be back later. I mean, that's such good advice. And it's absolutely 100% true. You cannot live in fear. I mean, that is a life unlived, like tomorrow never comes. Stop putting off stuff until tomorrow, right? Because the tomorrow you has a big to-do list.
Yes. And just one last thing about the fear is that I think if people can start seeing fear as just a thing, not an impact on their life, but just a thing, Just like, okay, so it happened, it's over, and you move on. I hope that makes sense. So if people can start seeing fear as a thing and not an impact on their whole existence, they will be able to push through it. And I don't tell people wait until fear is over. I teach people to walk through fear because there's so much on the other side of it. You don't have to wait for it. Just have the guts to walk through it, bottom line. And if you can, you will never fail in life. You can't.
I love that. I love that. Awesome, Regina. This has been a blast. I've had such a good time talking to you, and thank you so much for sharing your insight and wisdom and just all the stories. You know, it's you are a inspiration for sure.
Ah, it was my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Regina. So go ahead and tell the people, where can they find you? How can they get in touch with you? And what do you got going on in your world today?
Sure. So like I mentioned, I have redirected my focus. So I'm really passionate about helping people establish companies that are going to be here 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. So I'm working with new CEOs, whether startups or fairly new, helping them avoid the same catastrophic failure that I've seen over 100 times. So when people talk to me and work with me, I'm coming from experience. I give them that safety net to avoid the mistakes. As far as how they can get in touch with me, reginagulbinas.com is a website. My Facebook page, a lot of people get to me through my Facebook page. They message me, which is fine as well. And I do have an ebook that is available to download, How to Scale to 7 Figures. Now, people hear 7 figures, they think it's like a massive rocket science project. It's not. It's not that much of an amount. You just gotta get your head on straight, and it's fine. You know, it's not that big of a deal. It's what, 80,000 a month or whatever. Not that much, but that's the way to get. That's the way to get in touch with me. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Guys, definitely go check Regina out, download that ebook because, $80,000 a month, that's not that much, right? And we can all do it. No, this has been a blast, Regina. Thank you so much again. And, we'll catch you on the next one.
Thank you.